For so many years now, we've been dealing with the conflicted emotions involving Pixar and especially their choices in making sequels that weren't quite exactly the same quality of their original predecessors that remain beloved today. It's a group of films I don't really harbor much love for in the past, but certainly do not hate. Of course, sequels did build up Pixar to great success of where it is today, thinking in terms of Toy Story 2, but modern times starting with Cars 2 made them fall into the trap of what most Disney or other companies do when making sequels. A conflict that would never end between what can we perceive to be right or wrong in terms of any of these ideas, where its best can actually truly be its best. The statement that solely applies to Inside Out 2, with its tremendous success for Pixar after its contentious COVID Disney Plus era, recovering after Elemental opened low but rolled out to be a sleeper hit, that the world was changed yet again when a good sequel was produced once by the beloved studio that returned people to the days of old. Because it's no mistake that such a film would bring back a bigger financial and critical praise as it has in its past, but never to the level it ended up today after its release here back on Disney Plus. Like, no person on this earth could have ever imagined it would almost make double the original amount, let alone become the 8th highest grossing film of all time, a feat no animated film had ever reached quite yet, at a record of $1.68 billion. That sum alone makes it the highest grossing animated film ever, beating out 2019's Lion King and Frozen 2 to take top spot, and even domestically beating Incredibles 2 with over $650 million. I mean, yes, there is the factor of people adjusting for inflation to prove some odd point, but that really doesn't matter when it still is worth a lot if you estimate how many tickets were sold. Where you still can't deny how big it has been in countries around the world like Mexico and so on that took the movie to heart, and it's not hard to see why. A film that relates to the inner workings of the human heart and its emotional appeal. And for so many, we just couldn't be more happier that such a film like this does exist and one we have to dive in to celebrate its many accomplishments. But instead of doing a full-on review of the entire film, we're just going to take a look at the journey of its main character, Joy. And of course, anxiety, the heart of what Inside Out is. Because in contrasting why anxiety was such a big problem when I did it before, we have to remind ourselves what joy represents the most, being the main emotion of Riley and feeling the entire belief of the person. That this video is meant to contrast its protagonist and antagonist in their perfect delusions, deciding who Riley is when that is solely her own responsibility. Where that is what I would like to call the joy of Inside Out 2. Not just talking about the character, but the feeling that this story brings and deciding where your fate is going to end up. You could see this unfold in the very beginning of the story, with Joy going out loud and proud, introducing everyone in the ring to help Riley out just like any sportscaster would. And her feelings about everyone truly shows great development from the last time we saw her in the original Inside Out. Something very appreciable about the sequel that continues the original foe. Like her treatment of sadness despite her low opinions about what happens, is true character growth, supporting and appreciating others and what they can do for Riley that is in a positive impact. It's crucial to bring things up like this when other modern Pixar sequels like The Incredibles 2 sort of don't continue those original themes very well. Like it does a bit, but the stories of these other sequels don't really focus on what the characters went through in a different direction, with the thematic elements or the progress of the character that we just come from before. And Joy being here at the forefront, still leading but acting more positive to others like sadness, greatly enhances the world's ideals and what ends up later happening in the film. The ideals that begin with the concept of Riley's sense of self, consisting of all the beliefs and characteristics that make Riley who she is, or anyone else for that matter, which was really great for the film to tell. Yet more specifically, how we focus in on Joy's definition of this sense of self, of how this makes Riley a better person.
I'm a good person.
It's what helps Riley make good choices.
Striving to be the best within the words, Riley says, "I'm a good person," helping out others and making best friends like Bree and Grace. In terms of this beginning, we still focus on how Joy is an effective leader to help Riley grow up, making other devices that launch the bad memories to the back of her mind. Very clever on the movie's part to demonstrate how we put those terrible thoughts behind us in order to move forward to a perfect future. The future is a main key element of what this is, but also how this remains to be a fatal flaw.
We keep the best and toss the rest!
Again, alongside being the main leader, Joy still makes some classic mistakes of misunderstanding people's role or purpose, whether it be good or bad, just like throwing away things temporarily that still remain a part of that very same person. and actually tying back into the end of the film. This is where the entire belief system comes into play when she takes sadness down for the first time to deliver another core positive memory, where all of these strands come together to shape a sense of self back at headquarters. Like it's a musical notes on the harp that you get a string and you can hear the positive thoughts that make Riley who she is, what she believes in. In terms of Joy being here, we should call this a positive reinforcement when we constantly hear Riley utter good things like I'm a winner, I'm a friend, that all combines into one being I'm a good person.
I'm strong, brave. I'm a really good friend.
And fall asleep with good memories and thoughts of what is to come, before the puberty button comes in to change everything up. A realization where things get too hectic and removing the button to the back of the mind just doesn't solve things, only temporarily thinking, what is this piece of device, until it actually bites them, showing the cracks in her flawed structure that I just said. Because this part is where Riley starts to grow as a person, enlarging the console to make other emotions show up to the confusion of others. Moments where Riley starts acting weird without direct choice of any of them, leading to greater questions of what is happening to her when we find out that Bree and Grace had gotten assigned to a different high school, the catalyst for all the major events in our life. We understand through circumstances like this is how it's meant to describe the challenges of life, great grief and sadness of losing what you love while dealing with something you thought you'd gain, all made easier by the meeting of Val Ortiz herself, an icon to Riley not knowing how to properly act when anxiety finally shows up. The major focus when we are introduced to the greater world of emotions that in the past many might have thought would not have worked, but now seeing it handled impeccably by the crew, making her look up to Joy as much as Riley looked up to Val, and contrasting two sides that are determined to lead and help their girl grow up. That this is the crux of what I wanted to talk about on Focus, developing two sides of a coin that are neither wrong nor right in the main goal, with Joy still gladly accepting all new emotions of what they are.
I know new emotions can sometimes feel unhelpful at first, and you just wanna say to them, why are you so annoying? But I've learned that every emotion is good for Riley.
Sometimes it may not look good, but she embraces the opportunity they do to help with open arms. And I think the greater thematic element at play in this film is dealing with your past and present to move towards your future, which Anxiety's character is planned out as planning for that very future so that no mistakes could eventually happen, compared with the current events that Joy shapes in her good-natured past. That we must remember this part of ourselves to straighten her sense of self that believes she is good, and reaffirm that good is what we are. You can also see this and how the other emotions are portrayed as, like embarrassment wearing his hoodie to hide the painful moments, and ennui using an app to control the console, being completely lazy or bored out of their mind, trying to move to a modern times definition like the future would say.
And my job is to protect her from the scary stuff she can't see. I plan for the future.
And events like this and how the world is actually designed discusses the fact yet again that Ennui thinks Joy is too old school, not caring about how Anxiety wants this 3-day weekend to determine the next 4 years of Riley's life in high school, with Val in our view, taking this step immediately rather than Joy being cautious, knowing the time she wants to spend with Bree and Grace before they move on. The conflict of delusions between past and future selves, thinking what is best without knowing what exactly is best. Just like how nostalgia makes more of a cameo appearance, not quite ready yet to come into our life, and cleverly having a character that represents what most of these movies are made to evoke in any way. And it builds up to this point where their own original feelings seem to mess things up in a more serious high school environment with the coach and all the Firehawk girls whom they're trying to impress, and how Anxiety tries to remedy this by showcasing her strengths that most other emotions applaud. However, Joy in her own way still wants to control things, trying to praise things but still showing that she has a lot to learn about herself and the others, like Anxiety, if they're to understand how to properly help Riley. But they also help Riley by taking control, taking aim and what they want to do and decide where they want to go, when both want the same control, dividing her up between right and wrong, past and present.
Great job, Anxiety. I stepped back, you stepped in, you got Riley back on track, now I'm ready to step back in.
But that was just part 1 of my plan.
There's a part 2?
A good plan has many parts, Joy.
All of which contribute to the symbolical meaning of Anxiety breaking her sense of self physically to betray her friend's promise to move to her definition of a better future, which obviously divides things even worse between the old and new emotions, perceived to those like Envy that she won't be alone anymore with the new crew compared to being worse off, betraying everything that made her a good person for 13 years of her life that is now tossed in the back of her mind. And what was once used to be a perfect explanation to how we toss away bad memories or thoughts is now twisted in a way that is used as a fresh start, disposing of an entire good personality. And unfortunately, how that turns her against the old emotions to bottle them up, becoming the main antagonist of our film. Now, if you watch some of my previous Pixar videos, you notice how often I mention antagonist rather than villain, where I think for the most part, besides having perceived villains in their films, because they still are villains, they also perfect them in a way that can apply to the straight definition of a person having antagonistic traits rather than your typical villain that will be portrayed as evil like Disney wants them to be, what our own predefinitions of villains are when it comes to the entire company at large. And now how she partakes in the role against our main heroes without being mean to them at all. She means no harm and doesn't want to act out of malice or spite.
I am truly sorry. I was so looking forward to working with you guys. Riley's life is more complex now. It requires more sophisticated emotions than all of you. You just aren't what she needs anymore, Joy.
So when you see her say things like this needing sophisticated emotions and not needing the original emotions, you understand that she doesn't harbor any bad feelings against them and even regrets doing so. That makes her perfect to fulfill her antagonistic role against the main protagonist of Joy. Something we really didn't have in the first either, where she kind of acted bad towards Sadness for the most part, other than any other factor. And this was something my other friends understood by what I said, because they really didn't think Anxiety is a villain either, but how I said that and how she said she's wrong as we found out later in the film, because she's acting in a way that actually harms Riley without her knowing. And it's absolutely brilliant that they chose this route for a character when we know about the feelings that Anxiety brings to us, that makes us mostly think on the bad stuff that can happen and doing something potentially worse as a result of the said feeling. Something that literally happens moments later when she goes down to Riley's belief system and plants in the memories that she created. One that Envy questions, knowing how long it took Joy and the rest of them 13 years of her life to shape, but now how she happily dismisses that idea as more of a base to start over again.
Quick question. How do we build a new Riley, which I'm loving, by the way, amazing concept, if it took them 13 years to build the old one?
Well, good news is we're not starting from scratch.
The memories before already built her up, and now we can add just new things to reinforce something new. And how it's more crooked and orange to match her own personality to change things within a short amount of time. It's perfect to have her here at the forefront controlling things that Joy was used to showcase the damage it can potentially cause to a person when she keeps pushing herself harder than ever before just to be good at the hockey team. Where in the meantime, the original emotions get to revisit Riley's past in the vault with a spectacular usage of other forms of animation to sell in the point of her memories and getting help to help remember the good parts. All the while, Joy still continues her sad delusions of how she can easily repair things when the film decides not to. I say this because of how scenes like this explains that she thinks she can smooth things over with her own charm, knowing she is more of the apparent leader of Riley's mind, but actually not as we begin to fully understand Riley herself, which this film does a better job at doing and showing than the original in my opinion. Yet still, how it does remind us that she is a better person than before in the last film, tasking Sadness with getting back to headquarters and report and potentially stop Anxiety if possible on that side of things.
I can't do it. I'm not strong like you are.
I know you, Sadness. You are strong. I can't give you specific examples right now, but you got this.
She trusts him and serves as a better leader, delegating these things and tasks down here, with the rest and being confident in Sadness going back up to deal with all of those emotions. Dealing with emotions that are really framed to the audience, making things worse rather than better. The prime example of seeing her portray what her friends really know about her by her own interests fitting in and questioning if we find out what others like Coach think about her.
Get Up and Glow is so awesome.
Riley, what are you talking about? You love Get Up and Glow.
Oh, hey guys.
The more things change quickly, the more things get worse or harder for everyone involved, both inside and out, leading us to the one rant that inspired this entire video, or the most memorable quote in the entire film.
The Riley we knew is gone.
And if Joy can't see that, well, then she's delusional.
Delusional? Of course I'm delusional! Do you know how hard it is to stay positive all the time when all you folks do is complain, complain, complain? Jiminy mother-loving toaster strudel! Do you think I have all the answers? Of course I don't! We can't even find the back of our own mind. Anxiety is right. Riley doesn't need us as much as she needs them. And
and that hurts.
It opens up her vulnerabilities as a character, knowing that she hides true pain, keeping her happiness as a facade, but also realizing that it might be true if emotions like her are not needed anymore. Trying your best but knowing it might be for nothing if you don't know where that is. But how anger picks her back up, knowing her own mistakes, but also knowing her persistence as a hero is a good thing, doing what is best for her girl.
Joy, you've made a lot of mistakes. A lot. And you'll make a whole lot more in the future. But if you let that stop you, we might as well lie down and give up now.
Reminding us that it's okay for Joy to be delusional. Not in the sense that she's wrong and can harm Riley, but in the positively optimistic way it's portrayed that helps her stay calm and true. Especially when we finally reach the new Fort Piddleton that turned into a 1984 style sweatshop by Anxiety, representing animators drawing up scenarios to help her be prepared. A world they never thought they'd see since the last film didn't show it to be like this, and how Anxiety always moves fast to demand scenarios in Riley's mind.
Oh no, they're using Riley's imagination against her.
And it makes sense to do so because we feel overworked on any scenario that can affect us for the worst, and it just keeps happening like that because that's the role Anxiety plays in our lives. And now you're seeing her preparedness comes from overworking her body to fear and react negatively. The imagination is a powerful tool, and whatever feeling controls it, controls the overall decisions they make, and you can't help but relate to that notion stressing over every event. I've certainly ran into it often, including these last few months, since I don't think I'm the best at creating any of this or anything else in my life. But then we just contrast that same feeling with what Joy is, encouraged to think on the positive scenarios, to help the others realize what we should think of the good things, rather than Anxiety is actually harming Riley. And I love how this movie tries to frame it as such, with her being the villain compared to Joy being the hero, rallying everyone to fight back and break the hold, since she truly doesn't realize what she's doing is wrong. Every action and every push Riley makes would logically help her in the physical sense to become better or admired by her peers, but emotionally how it destroys everything true to who you are. The harder you go, the harder you fall. Like, you have that one moment in her own mind that thinks she is pushing herself too hard, but how envy encourages that this is the right thing.
Are we pushing her too hard?
We gotta see what's in the notebook. It's the only way for us to know how we can do better.
Trying to find out the truth that actually encourages them to continue on. Having other people validate that could lead them to better success if we know the truth, despite doing something very bad. A feeling that most of us certainly have, laying in bed thinking of what the next day could bring, and then getting up trying to see that for ourselves. Which of course leads to discovering the note that she clearly is not ready yet, that breaks Anxiety into chaos, and grabbing more ideals without knowing that it stops the crew right in the middle of a brainstorm. Again, drilling in the fact that she is an unwilling villain, not perceived as such, but all actions just point to harming the goals of the characters like Joy, because she can't stop and won't stop until that success is found. Now having sadness tied up in fantasy, becoming bigger and badder as the original sense of self slowly fades into the darkness, and the darkness that is just truly felt throughout our mind after Anxiety finally builds up that final sense of self, flooding her mind with these orange crooked beliefs faster than everything else that was formed in her life in a 3-day weekend, only for her mind to say something like this.
I'm not good enough.
What?
A tide that reverberates throughout the entire consciousness towards Joy again, realizing how bad things have become, because that is what true anxiety looks like when we push ourselves too far. When we work overtime instead of resting and changing our look to match the group we desire. Like, you know they did a good job when you absolutely hate how envy and anxiety are acting and thinking of all these things were good for her when she doesn't allow the original emotions to have a chance to have their say, that results in now having Riley believe she's not good enough. But she refuses to stop still. By stopping sadness after embarrassment gets encouraged to do the right thing, destroying Joy's original invention, making all hope lost again. Another painful moment that ties back into our message, looking at the old forgotten memories, sensing the notion of what you lose when you grow up.
You feel less joy.
A statement that is filled with truths, but also lies in how we grow up. Sure, we can be less joyful, but she herself turns it around, knowing how it is important to deliver the best parts of Riley too. Nothing is truly lost in a person if they only sit back to realize the good in the world that they can do themselves. That they can be more if they're able to pursue it or have other core beliefs inside. And of course, not forgetting how important Pouchy is as a character, having stacks of dynamite that they can all ride back to headquarters. Truly one of the highlights of what this film brought that I love dearly. And how this rush happens at the same time Anxiety's sense of self changes Riley for the worse for succeeding at scoring, but how she keeps pushing herself faster to get more and more and break some records rather than help the team out when she starts breaking them. Like, they appreciate her for getting the stuff in, but she becomes more selfish in the game, harming anyone that gets in her way because anxiety is getting her own way as well. The greatest part of the film that everyone seems to relate to the most in the panic attack, growing to represent the chaos this antagonistic force displayed when she started to change Riley's world completely. Because the sad truth of reality happens when the fact she harmed her own friend in the process as getting that penalty, when she gets sent to the box, and the intensity of the situation grows when they all get sent to the belief system, spilling all the bad memories inside that was in the back of her head when they try to make their way back up to headquarters, and anxiety creates a storm of pressure that only fills her with a greater panic.
You have to score, Riley, or this will all have been for nothing.
Anxiety, you're putting too much pressure on her.
And when they arrive, they find it more difficult to pull off the orange sense of self because anxiety is swarming the console with the urgent sense of a control freak, compared to earlier when it was easier for her to rip it out because those feelings weren't intense for her. Nobody was actually paying attention and just relaxing, and now, when somebody actually is out of control, it hardens in its place to stop anyone from pulling it away because it's now a part of her belief system that results in her not being good enough, leading them to the final confrontation, having both of them to face down, discovering that she's moving way too fast to get a hold of things, while Joy tells her a hard truth that she cannot choose who Riley is as a person.
You don't get to choose who Riley is. Anxiety, you need to let her go.
Holding back sad tears, finally admitting what she's done.
I was just trying to protect her.
Words that come out after a truth that restoring the original sense of self didn't help at all, because both of them were going to turn Riley into something she's not. We understand that both their senses of control were trying to help Riley, only thinking of positive joyful feelings of the past or envious anxiety of our future, and how all of them are just truly not villains at all in any sense, trying to protect her in the best way they can, knowing that they do care, but caring in the wrong way that closes rather than opens a mind full of thoughts that both come to realize after anxiety reiterates what Joy said.
We don't get to choose who Riley is.
And what I said throughout, having them as the main focus of this topic, learning the difference between helping out Riley rather than choosing for Riley. It's not fair for anyone to lean on one side or the entire theme of sense of self, because that sense is up to the person themselves to shape what they personally can learn about the world, believing in what they want. Another learning arc complete when she tears that away in order for a new one to build up in that place with added memories, both good and bad. Every part and every motion added to the spectrum that allows it to shape into various forms of whatever it wants to be, having her mind saying I'm this or I'm that and all of the above.
I'm selfish. I'm kind. I'm not good enough. I'm a good person. I need to fit in, but I want to be myself. I'm brave, but I get scared. Success is everything. I make mistakes. I'm nice. I'm mean. I'm a good friend. I'm a terrible friend. I am strong. I need help sometimes.
The hug that finally calms her down with all the emotions involved, allowing her to regain focus, to be who she is, owning up to her actions. Actions that started way back in the beginning with the fact that her friends were going to a different school that justified everything in the way that it was without realizing the inner workings of anxiety that decided it that way, in the meaning of inside out that makes sense and relates to all of us regardless of how we feel or how the actions are truly guided, since it is very real. Leading back to Joy to take her place, to guide Riley once again. Not to control her, but how we lead to help realize the best of what life is to each other, friends, family, and all. It's a graceful transition of slowed down beauty, letting the environment work itself out instead of it using it to a dangerous advantage. Just happily enjoying life to where our best decisions can come from. And now how she finally earns her new friendships with Val and the other team while keeping contact with Bree and Grace, making things great for everyone involved and still keeping to who each emotion is, but how we learn to calm our anxiety down, and how she can still be helpful preparing for future events that take place like a Spanish test, and that's just alright, while Joy still acts as the beacon of light, learning how valuable everything is to shape Riley, both inside and out. And I think the ending is the best, showing when they all say what she can do that is either good or bad.
She can have really bad ideas.
Occasionally, she can do the wrong thing.
And sometimes, she can be too hard on herself. But every bit of Riley makes her who she is. And we love all of our girl.
Yes, Riley can be a little too much at times or do the wrong thing like any other normal human would, but every action they take, loving or hating it, help inform us to who they are and why we love them as so. That no matter what, you can be the best you can be, because you can choose who that person is that makes us unique and teaches us valuable information, a part of our own existence and why it is so important. And having joy and anxiety as those two main leads, played brilliantly by Amy Poehler and Maya Hawke, is a perfect way to demonstrate these ideals. These delusions that lead to better situations to understand ourselves and shape the next era, leaving us with a smile on our face, whatever that could mean. If she did or did not get accepted is up to you to define, because that is the whole point of what this movie was made for. To define the old who already developed and the young who still can develop. A true worthy Pixar sequel in all senses of that word that never agrees with its good or bad sides, but accepts them both for what they can do, transcending all time itself that we will enjoy for generations to follow. And if you or anyone else around you got that, then I can really say that they did a good job and want to be eternally grateful for in the joy of life and our own perfect delusions that are used for our benefit. And with that all said, I'm all done. Goodbye.